Good morning and welcome, Patriot Radio News Hour, and I'm Joe Jaquin, CEO of the Patriot Trading Group, and our toll-free number, 800-951-0592, and I hope it finds you well. I was off for a few days. Well, I wasn't off. I was just not on the air towards the end of last week. It's good. I'm probably going to have to be retrained. You got to dust off the cobwebs. Plus, it's a Monday. I'm making all the excuses possible. The website, allamericangold.com. Ramon, who keeps us all in the know. We got articles, videos. We got the shopping cart, right? You can shop online now. People shop all the time now. So the weekend, boom, people are placing orders there. We got the metals plan. If you haven't signed up for the metals plan, we did a great show earlier last week about 401ks and what their performance has been. And what I liked about it is it was really kind of random. They said, hey, let's just take the last 12 years. Fair enough, right? So 12 years ago, you think back about 07, and you know what's funny about 07? Things were already bad here. Right? Housing had rolled over a while ago. Really, housing started to roll over here, about late 05, but had totally rolled over. The Dow still hadn't peaked yet. But the Dow in the last 12 years has doubled. It's not bad, right? Not bad. And over the last 12 years, gold has doubled. And actually, maybe a little bit more, but close enough. Okay, so you think about stocks have doubled, gold has doubled. That should tell you that, hey, my 401k is doing as good as my gold holdings. But according to the data from Vanguard, who these guys were the best of the best, they are the best of the best. It even had to say in the article, oh, by the way, the Vanguard guys do better than the other guys. So if you're not fortunate enough to have your company have Vanguard administering your 401k, the numbers are even worse for you. And my guess is because maybe Vanguard charges a little less in fees. That's just what I'm going to assume. But according to Vanguard, there is no change in the actual balance of 401ks. If you look at the median balance of 401ks in 2007, it was $22K. Guess what it is today? $22K. Problem was, if you took the older people, right, the people whose accounts are bigger, right? You're older, you've been in it longer, you're closer to retirement. Believe it or not, the median account has fallen. It went from 72K to 62K. And of course, listen, I've been saying this for a long time. And it bothers me that people don't say it more because they want you to believe you're crazy if you're a gold buyer, right? There's something wrong with you. We poke fun at it here. I poke fun. I've got 6 tinfoil helmets in my studio, right? I mean, I know I'm not crazy. I know that. And all of you out there need to understand it. And here's the best way for me to teach you and tell you that you're not. They tell you you have to buy stocks and bonds. They say, listen, and I tell you that, right? What do I always say? Don't put all your money in gold and silver. That's dumb. It's like putting all your money in housing or putting all your money in bonds or putting it all in stock. You don't do that. You be truly diversified. But the fact that they want you to believe you're crazy and something's wrong with you, why? Why would they say that? Because they know, right? Number one, when you actually buy physical gold, They don't get to whack you. Right? I don't call you up every year and say, hey, Schmuckatelli, hey, how you doing today? Yeah, it's Joe over here at Patriot. Hey, listen, gold's done real well here this year, and you got quite a bit of it. Go ahead and mail me two $20 gold pieces, and we'll call it good. Right? And then do that every single year. Right? So that's number one. But number two, if you actually do the math, gold outperforms. I don't care, pick the years. 12 years. Gold's better. Right? Go back to 1971. See, when they try to do it, and listen, for those of you that know, when you deal with these Wall Street pinstripe bandits, right, they always want to say, well, over the last 100, 200 years, look, like the Dow's crushed gold. Right? That's what they tell you. Here's the funny part about that. The gold was the money back then. So if the Dow good did, gold did good because it was the same thing. Right? We went full fiat, went to a fiat currency in 1971. And if you track the Dow's performance and you track gold's performance, gold wins. Now, pick different time periods, right? And stocks could do a little better, gold could do a little better. But overall, over time, gold's a great place to put your money. You're not crazy. You're actually pretty smart. When we get back, I've got a major update on the trade situation. Don't touch that dial. Stay with us. I've got an update on the trade war coming. I'll probably do it in the next segment. But we're talking about gold and stocks and bonds. And remember Jay Powell when he was testifying in front of Congress and really how sad it is. Not Jay Powell in his testimony. Just had the behavior, and it's both sides. I don't care. Democrats, Republicans. I mean, they're all as they care about is political agendas. They don't care about the country. But remember when they asked him about gold and returning to the gold standard? And remember what his answer was. And it was one, I'll say this, and I've said it multiple times. I appreciate Jay Powell's simple talk. In other words, Alan Greenspan, when he talked, no one even knew what he said, right? I mean, by the time he got done speaking, you didn't know if he thought the economy was doing good, was it doing bad, right? Were we going into a recession? Is it economic expansion? We didn't know. And obviously Bernanke and Yellen, they were good at that as well. But Jay Powell, much simpler when he talks. And I like that because you know what? He can relate to everybody. And he said he didn't want to go back to the gold standard. And he said because, we can't do our mandate then. Right? Our mandate of full employment and stable prices. And, of course, I'm sitting there thinking, if I was the one, if I was sitting there and I was able to ask him that question and he gave me that answer, I guess my response would be, how could you sit there with a straight face and say that you've given us stable prices? Right? I mean, just look at a gold piece. Right? When they confiscated gold in 1933, see, the banks wanted the control. They wanted the power. And you need to understand that that's all it was. The very wealthiest bankers in the world wanted the power. And they wanted the power everywhere. Because remember what else he said? Well, everybody else did it. Right? Everybody else did it. And of course, as a parent, right, we're all parents. It was, if your buddies jumped off a bridge, would you? Right? That old chestnut. But I was thinking about it and how true it is. Does that make it right? And really what these bankers did here They did it everywhere, right? They did it to the Germans and the French and the English, just like they did it to us. They want power. Now, we lived on this gold standard for a long time. Matter of fact, before this third reincarnation of a central bank that we had starting in 1913, the country had spent the vast majority of its birth, if you will, its inception, without a central bank. Last time I checked, we did okay. We beat the British without it. Right? We did, we had a civil war without it. I mean, we were doing just fine. But they wanted more power. And so now they have this power. We need to believe it, right? We need to believe that they can control employment. They can't. Listen, raising and lowering interest rates quarters of a point doesn't control employment. I know it does because they can borrow and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And, of course, we know what happens. What do? They borrow to buy back their own stock, right? And of course, stable prices, the only thing stable about prices is everything costs more, right? I guess if that's stability, then okay. But he's sitting there and he's trying to say, hey, you know what? We need to have the power. And I guess we need to ask the question, why? Shouldn't really the central bank's job make sure that the banks don't fleece the customers? Right? I mean, think about how many banking scandals have there been? And I'm not just talking about Wells Fargo. Who just, how they're still in business. I hate to say this. I don't like Elizabeth Warren. I think she would be very bad for the country. I think I would be, my company, Patriot Trading Group, we'd probably do really well, right, if she was president. And that's why I'm telling you, don't vote for her. I think that'll be bad. Even though I would do well. But the one thing that she does say that I agree with, Wells Fargo should no longer be a bank. I mean, they literally ripped off almost every single customer they had in every way possible. Right? And of course, think about Warren Buffett, right? They put him out on TV. And I don't know if he's the second richest man, the third richest man, whatever, one of the richest men in the world. And, he's the great Oracle of Omaha. And I think about Warren Buffett, he is great. And I don't want to slight the man. He made a career in debt. And smartly, he took other people's money and bought the best companies around. And now they call him brilliant, right? And it is brilliant, right? He didn't have to take his money to do it, right? He actually never started a single thing. But he was able to capitalize on the system that we had. But neither here nor there. They dust him off, and then they try to convince you that this is how it needs to be. And how horrible it would be. And you're seeing the articles now, aren't you? Oh, it could be devastating to go back to the gold standard. Yes, it would be for a little while. All of these zombie companies that we have out there, all of this debt that we have out there. Think about this. Earlier this morning, they think they're going to be close to coming to an agreement on the debt ceiling. Now, Congress created this debt ceiling, right? To say, hey, we want to make sure we keep this spending in check. Now, we didn't need a debt ceiling up until we let the central bankers have total and complete control over all of us. I mean, the debt in 1971 was only $400 billion. $250 billion of that, by the way, came from World War II. And then Lyndon Johnson and started, Lyndon Johnson, think about stuff Lyndon Johnson started, like food stamps, right? And all of those programs, which didn't seem like a lot back then. And now you got 40 million people on them. But the debt really only went up during war. And we really didn't have very much national debt during the Great Depression. Matter of fact, most of the decade of the Great Depression, we ran pretty much balanced budget. Some years we ran a little surplus. Some years we ran a little deficit. We ran some deficits during World War II. Most people don't know, and they don't want to educate you. We ran just as many surpluses as we did deficits on a government level. Right after World War II, up until 1971. That's a fact. See, that was the last remnant, the last holdover of the gold standard. See, you had to keep that national debt in check. But the bankers knew, hey, we're gonna default on this debt. You think about it, they defaulted on us in 1933. You couldn't own gold, right, for 40 years. Because they knew, hey, if we let the American public have the opportunity to choose, which, by the way, one of the great things with Ron Paul I love, choose, pick. I would love that. I'd let Bitcoin be in, gold be in, right? The renminbi, the U.S. dollar, whatever you want it to be. I don't care. Libra. Let them all pick. Pick which one. And you know why I say that? Because I know gold would win. But they wanted to re-educate everybody. And when they closed the gold window in 1971, that didn't have to do with us per se. It does. Trust me, it did. But what they did was they told all the foreign governments that were holding U.S. debt, no more gold for you. See, the only thing that happened during the 50s and the 60s was these foreign governments were saying, you know what? I'm going to take some of these treasury holdings that just matured, and I'm going to buy gold with it. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Right? That's what's happening right now. Right? Think about all these central banks that are saying, you know what? I'm going to hold a little less dollars. I'm going to buy a little more gold. And so we said, hey, you no longer can do it anymore. And as soon as we said that, what happened? I mean, we went 195 years to get $400 billion of debt. 10 years later, the debt was $1 trillion. Right? Of course, hey, we don't have to give them gold anymore, so it's okay. Right now, of course, it's $22.525 trillion. And now, they're getting ready to make a deal. We're going to spend a bunch of money because, that's how they make deals in Washington. But we are going to let the debt limit go. They used to put dollar values on it. Hey, when the debt hits $1 trillion, we need to have a talk, right? Congress needs to get together to talk. Right, when it's $2 trillion, $5 trillion, $10 trillion. The problem now is it goes up so fast that about 3 years ago or so, we stopped putting a number on it. Because nobody wants to go out there and tell you, hey, we're going to increase the debt ceiling by $5 trillion. Right? People, what? No, 2 years. Now, it hasn't happened yet, but it looks like that's going to be the deal. 2 years. So the next time our government is even going to talk about debt will be in 2021, and the debt will be somewhere between $26 to $27 trillion in 2 years. And you sit there and you think about why they don't want you to buy gold. It's the same reason they don't want to go back to the gold standard. Right? Because then the truth would come out. The truth would be, hey, you know what? We were robbing you the whole time. And even worse, we were lying about it, right? I mean, what would you have to revalue gold at to keep pace? Patriot Radio News Hour, I got a great special and an update on the trade war when we return.
This is the Phyllis Schlafly Report from Phyllis Schlafly Eagles. Mrs. Schlafly was a courageous and articulate voice for traditional values and common sense for more than 70 years. Now, continuing that legacy, here's the president of Phyllis Schlafly Eagles, Ed Martin.
The 6 major female candidates for the Democratic presidential nomination were supposed to be thriving by now. Senators Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, Kirsten Gillibrand, and Amy Klobuchar were thought to be the cream of the crop. Instead, the Democrat B team has dominated the field. Names like Biden, Bernie, Beto, and Buttigieg enjoy a handy lead in most recent polls. Joe Biden is basically running away with the nomination, even though he's really the weakest of them all. A lot of people are wondering why we're seeing so much traction for white men when many thought 2020 would be the year of women and minorities. The B team can thank Hillary Clinton for this. The overpaid pundits all thought 2020 would be about backlash against President Trump. Come to find out, the next election is shaping up to be a backlash against Hillary. Grassroots Democrats are rebelling against the relentless liberal media pressure to support a candidate because of their sex or race. Just take a look at where the women were in the early polls. Elizabeth Warren is one of the women far behind the B team in most polling. She's so desperate for any kind of attention, she's been spending her time bashing Fox News while refusing to do a town hall on their station. Warren absurdly tweeted that Fox News is a hate-for-profit racket that gives a megaphone to racists and conspiracists. It's designed to turn us against each other. Next up is Kirsten Gillibrand, who blames gender bias for her poor performance with Democrats. She said, I think people are generally biased against women. I think also biased against young women. The real reason is not gender bias. It's backlash by Democrats against Hillary Clinton for taking them down the road to a crushing defeat in 2016. In 2018, after all, other feminist Democrat senators lost big in their home states of North Dakota and Missouri. They didn't lose because they were women. They lost because they were feminists. The American people didn't want that in 2016, and they don't want it now. Instead of blaming gender bias, the Democrat candidates should blame their poor performance in polls on the fear Americans have of giving the nomination to another radical feminist in the mold of Hillary Clinton.
Thanks for listening to the Phyllis Schlafly Report. You'll be glad to know the legacy of Phyllis Schlafly continues, upheld by Ed Martin, president of Phyllis Schlafly Eagles, Chairman Helen Marie Taylor, Treasurer John Schlafly, a full staff in St. Louis and our nation's capital, and thousands of citizen volunteers, her Eagles, across the country. You can be part of that legacy at phyllisschlafly.com. That's phyllisschlafly.com.
We're back, 800-951-0592. You know, the dirty little secret is a simple one. The bankers wanted control, and they wanted the ability to create debt because that's how they prosper. This is why they don't want you to buy gold. Listen, they banned it for 40 years for a reason. They're you know, these guys aren't dumb. Of course they banned it. Because if they didn't, you would have been like, yeah, forget this, I'm buying gold. Right? I'm putting gold in my pocket. Think about, then they told you when they finally made it legal, what did they tell you? Oh, you know what I mean? It doesn't pay interest, right? That was their big thing. Oh, it doesn't pay interest. Of course, now they don't pay interest. Right? And now, what are you going to do? Where would you put it? Well, the same place you put your cash, that you have at home, right? There's a thing. I know it's a brand new invention. It's called a safe. I know, right? I mean, you go to Costco for like $200 and you can buy one. It's crazy. Oh, it's so difficult. How can you sell it? And you know how many gold dealers there are? How many coin shops there are? They're everywhere. 800-951-0592. Before the special, we got an item we haven't run in a long time because there's just never product to run them. Got a great item. Not a lot. Very limited number today, but be ready for that. But before we do, this hasn't gained a lot of traction. I haven't seen anybody run it, i.e. the Wall Street Journal or Zero Hedge or Drudge or anybody really. But Jim Cramer went out on TV today and said this is what the CEOs are telling him about the trade deal, right? Remember, we haven't heard nothing since the G20 on trade. Jason, play Cramer.
R.J. O'Brien had a note last night saying, we think it's possible the president moves on the $300 billion this week.
Absolutely. I think it's
it's possible?
I think it's very possible. I think the Chinese are really playing with fire. I think the president very much he loves the tariffs, very much wants to have the tariffs, okay, and then take them down. It's easier to have them up and take them down than it is to slap them on. That has been a continual theme in the White House, by the way, from some of the people. Listen, let's just get the tariffs up. So I think I cannot believe the Chinese are not showing good faith right here in buying.
I think they're watching the clock here, Jim. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Well, they're so-called playing the long game. Give me a break. I mean, the president's playing. I think maybe they're looking at who are they thinking is like Senator Warren. I mean, they're trying to play that game. They better stop playing politics and better start ordering because most of the industrial companies that I talk to are ready for the big increase maybe within the next 2 weeks.
Interesting.
That's what they're talking about offline. We're about to get 300.
Yeah.
We're about to get tariffs on $300 billion any day now.
That's something to watch.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up because I don't think people realize that the president he's hungry for tariffs. He really is.
And not afraid to slap them on.
No, not at all.
That's obvious by now.
Oh, no, he loves a good nothing like a good tariff for that guy.
Jim Cramer on TV today, days away, and I think this is what I think. I think the president's waiting for the central bank to cut rates and to continue to be very dovish. Another Twitter storm attacking the central bank again today and getting ready to possibly move on these tariffs. Because remember, China was supposed to start buying stuff. Remember, that was the deal that they told us in the G20. Hey, they're going to buy some food and they're going to buy some stuff for Huawei or this or that or the other, and they haven't done it. I mean, really, have they bought nothing? No, they bought a little bit, but really almost nothing. They essentially told the president, hey, kiss our backside. And you know what's so funny is they said, there's Kramer's like, I can't believe it. I told you. I told you this was how it was going to go. And you start thinking about, okay, what's next for gold? What's next for silver? Gold's $14.27, $14.28. It's up like $1 a day. Silver, another good day in the silver market. Up another 25 cents here for silver. We had some profit taking on Friday. Next week, we're going to get the rate cut. How big? I know the president wants 50 basis points. I think what we're going to get, though, is 25 and the dovish statement, right? In other words, hey, here's 25, and hey, we're still watching here, and you're gonna hear trade war, this, that, and the other, and we're gonna go another 25 in the next meeting. And I think that could be when you see the president throw the other $300 billion in tariffs. Because I'm going to say this right now: I've been watching. China hasn't done anything that it said it was going to do. Kind of like hey, we're 90% on our way to a deal, and then China came back and said, hey, we don't agree to any of this stuff. Kind of the same thing. So I think this is setting up for the next leg here in the gold market. I think we're going to see not only a rate cut, but the trade war, which I wasn't sure if the president was going to follow through. Because I'll be honest with you, I was disappointed with the I really was disappointed with what happened at the G20. He let China off the hook, and I didn't understand. I'm like, he must only care about Wall Street. Right? That was the only thing I could think of, because China had done absolutely nothing to warrant, any type of forgiveness. And now they didn't buy. They were supposed to buy the soybeans, and they were supposed to buy the hogs, and they were supposed to buy all this agricultural product, and they haven't done it. So we'll see. And now I didn't actually think that we would get the other $300 billion. I didn't think we would. I didn't think I thought that maybe, and I don't know why I thought it, but I did. That Trump was more worried about Wall Street, and really I think what he was worried about is, I can't trust Jay Powell. I can't trust this central bank, because we don't need a quarter point. We don't need a half of a point. If we're going to go and say that's it, everything that we buy from China now is going to be hit with tariffs, and we're going to have an escalation of this trade war, right? We got to be realistic. Right? I mean, what do we need? 4 cuts? 6 cuts? Do we need to go back to 0? And how quickly are we going to get there? Because if they don't go fast enough, right, we're going to have trouble. And I think this is kind of what the president's been talking about. What has he been talking about for the last 6 weeks? I want that dollar lower. I want the dollar lower. I want the dollar lower. I think he may get his wish. Patriot Radio News Hour, when we get back, got a great item for you. 800-951-0592. That is our toll-free number. Today, we've got an item. We don't get to sell a lot of these anymore. I remember when I first started here, these were always a hot item. Talking about the Indians. You know, we have 2 kinds of Indians, a $10 Indian, and then you got the $5 Indian, the $2.50 Indian. There's actually a $1 as well. The $1 is just incredibly expensive. And same with the 2.5s. You know, a 2.5 Indian or even or a lib, when you think about price per ounce, they're just so expensive. It's just not practical. So when you deal with Indians, you're normally talking about 10s and 5s. And remember, the Indians came with the Saints, right? So they were going to be the fractional coins that went with the St. Gaudens. So you had, remember the $20 Liberty, $10 Liberty, $5 Liberty. Well, when Teddy Roosevelt, they redesigned all the coins, right? We know about the $20, Augusta St. Gaudens, the Saint, but they also did the $10 and the $5 Indians to go with those Saints. They were the fractional coins of the Saints. Remember, we had the plague, 1916. They actually stopped minting Indians because they thought that the Indian carried the plague because at least on the $5 and the $2.50, they had an infused design, which means they actually carved into the coins, and and the dirt and the germs would get in there. So the Indian series, they didn't mint that many of them, and they didn't mint them for most of the minting cycle from 2008, if you will, to 1933. They only minted Indians for like 10 years. So they carry a higher premium, and they're really hard to get in any number. I got a phone call today from one of our suppliers. These coins are arriving in San Diego this afternoon. They're arriving in San Diego this afternoon. I've got 30 $10 Indians. Now, the $10 Indian is the Lady Liberty, and she's got on the Indian headdress, right? So she's wearing the feathers, right? The Indian headdress on Lady Liberty. Absolutely, I'm pretty sure Colin Kaepernick would call this a racist coin, right? Because, you can't have Lady Liberty with the Indian headdress on. That's racist. Of course it is, right? And, of course, it was really meant to what? To honor and show respect. But neither here or there. I'm sure it is not a politically correct coin. And here's the great thing about it today. And of course, I've told you, right, and I just told you the story. Listen, these carry a higher premium. Normally, a $10 Indian is anywhere from 20 to 40 at the peak. $10 Indians, believe it or not, used to be like $100 a coin more than a $10 Liberty, and may have actually got to $200 more. But lately, for most of the last, say, 2 years, a $10 Indian runs about $20 more. So not only do I never get a lot of them, same amount of gold as a $10 Liberty, buy the $10 Liberty. Our mantra here, buy it as cheap or as close to spot as possible. So today, I've got 30 $10 Indians, and they're going to be $10 less than a $10 Liberty. So you're going to be saving $30 per coin, $785 on these 30 $10 Indians. Lady Liberty with the Indian headdress on at 800-951-0592. That is our toll-free number. $10 Indians for $10 less at 800-951-0592. And then, you start thinking about where we're at right now. If Cramer's right, which I believe him, I absolutely believe that the CEOs that he's talking to have been saying, hey, listen, the White House is telling us, get ready, right? The next round of tariffs could be days away. And again, I don't know anything. The president hasn't called me, right? I don't have any of that. But I'm just kind of thinking, hey, he wants the dollar to be weaker. He needs to make sure the central bank's on board, and he's expecting rate cuts. And of course, if the next $300 billion go on, I think a lot of people will be saying, hey, we're not going to get one rate cut this year. We're not going to get 2 rate cuts this year. We're probably going to get 4 rate cuts this year. Speaking of a rate cut, look who just walked in the door.
Hey, can anybody come in here?
Apparently. Easy E. By the way, happy birthday. 60 years old. The guy looks like he's 40.
You were there, too.
I was there.
My wife threw a surprise birthday party, and nobody was more surprised in the entire room than me that I made it to 60.
I think that was my toast. I was like, hey, I'm unprepared. He's not supposed to be here.
Man, I had to come in and help answer the phone. Phones are ran off the hook. This is the perfect storm for gold. I mean, it doesn't get any better. You've got the Federal Reserve now for the first time in history getting in bed with the president. That's never happened. Never. You understand that it's always a dichotomy where you have to read the tea leaves and the president never says a thing. Never. So now they're all getting on the same side, and I agree, quarter point cut here and the dovish statement. But what's even more amazing, we'll talk about it. I've been dying to get this out on the air now for a while. We're going to talk about the perfect storm for gold. I mean, it's so perfect, they may make a movie out of this. We'll see you when we get back.
Hey, we're back. Final segment. And you know what? You never know who's going to walk in. Easy-E, Eric Cedarstrom, joining us today, and he's got a lot to say. He's got a really interesting spin on where things are at right now.
Well, if you think about the last quarter century right here on the American Freedom Network, and we sat and watched the socioeconomic destruction of America, the American lifestyle, the American way, and then they just gave away the industry. They gave away the intellectual property, and they gave it to the Red Chinese. Now, I use the word Red Chinese. They had a copy of the 1969 newspaper. We got a copy of it with your newspaper delivery from the man, we landed on the moon. So they had the whole front page. They recopied it with the delivery of the newspaper. And in the bottom, everybody in the world got to see America land on the moon except the Red Chinese. They wouldn't allow the television broadcast. So the word red, when you were a kid, remember red? For you people that don't know, 1969 we were fighting the Red Chinese, the communists, the Vietnamese. I mean, everybody, we were fighting against communism. Well, we just watched them give it all away. So we sat here going, well, you can't have free trade. You can't give away intellectual property. Can't move everything offshore. The economy's going to collapse. All the conservatives, we all agreed. We talked about it every day, Joe and I. Guess what happened? Everything collapsed. Now you've got a conservative president back in. They're trying to bring the factories back, bring the sovereignty back to the country, smaller government. Everybody's fighting him. They're trying to get the genie back in the bottle. And they're having trouble doing that. So now you've got a Fed that's agreeing with the president, which is unheard of. Unheard of. So now everybody's on board and need lower rates, which is going to be a weaker dollar, which puts us back into the global arena. And then you've got now the liberal candidates coming out saying the economy's going to collapse. So why they're doing that, Elizabeth Warren's out today. Oh, yeah, everything's going to collapse. So now the message that we were saying, why they gave everything away, was that it was going to collapse. Now he's trying to bring it back, and the other side is trying. Now the other side is buying gold. So you've got the conservatives buying gold. You got the feds that are yelling at you, buy gold, we're going to lower rates and weaken the dollar. And you've got every liberal from here to Timbuktu screaming the economy's going to collapse, and they're all buying gold. I've never seen anything like it. When we get to the presidential election, I don't know where the Dow's going to be. It might be 35,000, but I guarantee you, you're going to see a tremendous run in the gold because of this. This is the only thing they can point at. This is the only thing, because all the government data is backing the president, jobs and everything that we always knew they made up, GDP, blah, 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 blah. That is all going in his favor. The feds are in his camp. The other side's telling you everything's going to collapse. They got to put their money where their mouth is. Your trading volumes in the gold markets have skyrocketed. Why? Because the first time in history, liberals are buying gold. There's not a better time. The only thing they're going to be able to point at during the presidential election, not the Dow, not the GDP, not anything except look at gold. And what's happened is silver is confirming the rally. Confirming. So whenever you get that, just get ready. Silver's going to yank gold right along with it. So it's amazing. I mean, I've never seen anything like it, Joe. I just wanted to get on the air.
I guess I'm going to have to start doing this. Buy gold, because Trump's going to win, and it's all going to go to hell in a handbasket.
No, we're going to do NPR radio. Hello? Yes. We believe you should be buying gold today.
I'm throwing my hat in the ring for Elizabeth Warren and AOC.
Crazy. Get those Indians, man.
800-951-0592. $10 Indians for $10 less than a $10 Liberty. That's $7.85. We'll be back tomorrow.